Alright, the best Star Wars show is back. Andor is a miracle. The first season came out at one of the worst times for Star Wars. I mean, the Book of Boba Fett was bad, Obi-Wan Kenobi was bad, even Lego Star Wars was disappointing, that one especially hurt. And here was Disney offering us a spin-off for the most whatever Star Wars movie, and it was this good. Andor Season 1 is a perfect 10 out of 10. It's such a fresh take on a familiar story. To strip this 40-year-old conflict from all the Jedi and show that what actually drives the rebellion is normal people willing to sacrifice everything is such a fascinating direction to take a Star Wars show. The characters can't just barge into an Imperial base and wreck shit up with a lightsaber. They have to meticulously plan everything. They have to find excuses for why they meet with each other. They have to work their ass off to secretly get funding. If they want to commit a heist, they have to practice it for months. If they kill Imperial officers, they have to live with the consequences. And if they want to truly further the cause, they have to make sacrifices. This show portrays what actually needs to be done to stop fascism. It highlights the unsung heroes. Not everyone can make it out, and it's not pretty to watch. You see the darker side of the rebellion, you see what needed to be done, and you see why it needed to be done. I'm not the first to say it, but man, I have never hated the Empire more. It's not like the rest of the franchise paints them as good, but it never does a great job at showing exactly how evil they are. Watching Princess Leia barely react to seeing her entire home planet get blown up does get us rooting for the heroes, but ultimately that's such a fantastical event that it's kind of difficult to fully grasp how horrifying it technically is. They come off as wacky movie villains, which is then further supported by Palpatine being a mustache-twirling bad guy, the fact that no character ever takes the threat of Stormtroopers seriously, and just the entirety of the prequels. In Andor, that could not be further from the truth. The entire story happens because Cassian gets harassed by cops. You watch the characters try as hard as they can to ignore the Empire, and it becomes clear how oppressive this regime is for the average citizen in this universe. You watch them insert themselves into planetary cultures, drive people away from their homes, arrest people for just running at a beach, double those prison sentences arbitrarily, and abuse their powers in ways that just make it impossible to live life ignoring them. And you're finally like, these guys need to be stopped. I need to kill them. It is wild to watch a couple of stormtroopers or a single TIE fighter manage to be this scary, but I adore this more realistic depiction. And on top of all of this show is just better in every way. Conversations feature real dialogue that sound like something you would find in a real TV show. The characters have personality, goals, dreams, struggles, moralities that aren't black and white, and genuinely award-worthy performances. I love that Cassian's arc doesn't seem immediately join the Alliance. He proves his skills, but he has to really get radicalized and act as a leader before he is ready. And the production quality, don't get me started! Every Disney Plus show now is filmed on the volume, and it's always as a shortcut and not as a tool, and they never do anything interesting with the camera. It's either stable tripod or artificial shaky cam, but man, this show just looks incredible. The production design is so tangible, it's like I'm there. You can see how much care was put into every detail. The costumes alone tell a story. The soundtrack gradually gets more and more rebellious with Cassian, getting really loud at the end of arcs once he experiences a pivotal shift in his life. The cinematography is breathtaking. This is the best shot in all of Star Wars. The world building! Ferrix is the best developed planet in the entire franchise. Like, we go back to Tatooine so often, but when was the last time we learned something new about it? Aside from the Tuskens, we haven't expanded on the world building of Tatooine since 1999. Meanwhile, in just one season, we learn about Ferrix's history, their culture, how their society functions, their traditions. Then you add in details like child scream torture device and lightsaber ships, which by the way is the most pandering moment of this show, yet it still is much more creative than all the other bits of fan service we've gotten over the years. And then just, I love this show. I've been highly anticipating season 2, and man, it is so good to be back. Right off the bat, I was reminded of how solid this is. That 3-minute long one take during episode 1 was such a solid flex that said, oh yeah, we have a real set by the way. It was such a great way to shoot that scene. I felt like I was exploring Chandrilla myself. Such a neat way to show off the scope of this show, just how many characters, locations, and plot lines we get to watch in a little rundown that's also the most interesting directorial decision in a Star Wars show since the season 1 finale. The season explores more ways the Empire abuses their power in horrifying ways, and just how scary they are for a regular person. Just their presence as they check for visas is enough to unsettle both the characters and the viewers. If you're stupid, then you might look at an Imperial officer try to take sexual advantage of Bix and say that this has no place in Star Wars because Vader wouldn't condone it. But this is a very unfortunate reality that happens all the time in our world, and if you ask me, I think depicting it in the How Does Fascism Affect Us show is not only important, but a good thing. Yes, it's hard to watch. That's the point. A lot of people in power do this shit to women all the time in the real world. We should be highlighting it in a negative light. But by far the best and most horrifying thing the Empire does this season is on Gorman. Watching them casually discuss how to exterminate an entire culture to mine its resources while they ate snacks was so unimaginably disturbing. Seeing them manipulate the Gormans into rebelling, knowing that's the outcome they want, is disgusting. And man, the actual massacre brought me to tears. Watching them commit such an atrocity and smile while doing it, it was the most scary depiction of this empire we've ever seen. I think a detail that says so much is the fact that in order to provoke the fighting, they had a sniper shoot one of their own. It says so much about how ultimately nobody matters to the empire. Doesn't matter if you're here to serve them, if you're more valuable dead, they won't even think twice. Seeing them slaughter so many innocent people, also they can harvest energy that will let them kill so many more innocent people. Yeah, no, it was bone chilling. The Gorman massacre was by far the darkest and most mature thing Star Wars has ever seen. When the Gormans start chanting together, and it's such a powerful scene even though that's what the Empire wants to happen, and that one guy is onto them but he's too helpless to stop it, storytelling does not get much better than this. Oh my god, when the intro for the next episode had their song instead of the usual theme, bro! And as a contrast to all this horrific Empire shit, we also get new comparisons between the Rebellion and our world. I think the Rebels in the first arc get way too much hate. Not only that I find them funny as fuck, I mean that rock, paper, scissors shit was hilarious. It was also a really good representation of leftist infighting. At the end, we're all working towards the same cause, and attacking each other is only causing more problems. I love once again how small victories are portrayed as so grand, because at the end of the day, the rebellion is built off the small wins. Cassian stealing a single TIE fighter is a really big victory, and the rebels not knowing how to fly it is a very cute and realistic addition of world building. When Clea was trying to remove the listening device from the Antique, dude, I was on the edge of my seat. Mon Mothma's big cheer-worthy moment this season isn't some intense action scene. It's her calling out the genocide that everyone else is willing to overlook. And the speech is so powerful. That line about how the death of truth is the ultimate victory of evil, what a potent statement that perfectly encapsulates fascism. It is so insane to me that all of this patient, subtle, and deep storytelling is in a fucking Star Wars show. I love that we have an addition to this franchise that I can earnestly describe as prestige television. The production quality has also only gotten better. There are some shots that just left me in awe. The season jumps around locations a lot more than season 1 did, and every new planet is unique in its own way. They all have a distinct look to them. So much world building happens not just through the writing and characters, but through the set design. I once again love how real everything feels. It's so much more effective when the characters look like they're actually interacting with their surroundings. The VFX work was also great. The big moment I can think of last time was the eye, and that episode looked stunning, but this season is a bit more demanding in terms of CGI, and wow, look at what time and budget can accomplish. The only sort of valid complaint with season 1 was that there wasn't enough alien characters, and it feels like they took note. There are way more aliens this season, and their designs are all so delightful. Look at this. Look at her. I love her. There are certain bits of the score that left me in tears, but then you also get stuff like a disco ball droid playing Star Wars dance music, and not only is the scene incredible to look at, not only is it devastating, but the song goes so fucking hard. And the Kino Loy music playing in the finale, are you kidding me? Here come the waterworks. After the lifeless, dull, and bland look of Ahsoka, I was just so happy to get something with colors, with real sets, and with a camera that's willing to do anything. My only complaint this season is probably the one you were expecting. See, the original plan for this show was to have it be 5 seasons long, with each season covering a year of Cassian's life, but the team decided that they didn't want to be on their deathbed finishing the 5th season, which, fair. So instead they have the season skip a year with each passing arc. I totally get why they did this, but man, we couldn't at least have had 2 seasons with 6 episodes dedicated to each arc. The structure works fine, don't get me wrong. It's a little jarring at times, but the episodes do tell a concise narrative. But season 1 worked so well because it had so much time to tell an appropriately sized story. Mon Mothma, essentially the second main character, and Dedra, arguably the main villain, don't appear until episode 4 of season 1, and it works perfectly fine because that's what the story demands. If a character isn't in an episode, they still contribute to the overall season. You get plenty of time with everybody. Every arc flows into the next seamlessly. Cassian's setting changes each time, but it works for his arc, and everyone else is living through a continuous story. Here, there's an overall connecting point, but every arc covers its own subplot. With the exception of the Gorman stuff, which does transition incredibly well, what the characters do in each arc is relatively a lot more independent, which I would like to repeat is not a bad thing. I like arcs. I like that they have connective tissue with their themes and the character arcs despite covering different events. My only problem, and the biggest reason I have for not considering the season as practically perfect, is that if a character is not in an episode, they're basically missing for a third of that portion of the story, and this ends up being really noticeable. Some characters get some real good shit. Mon Mothma had one of my favorite subplots last time. Her having to grapple with hiding her secret cause from her family, which in turn estranges their relationships and causes her daughter to go down a traditional lifestyle, one that Mon is trying to save her from, was so fucking interesting. Not only was it so depressing watching her have to basically sacrifice her daughter Lita in a way for the cause, but to watch Lita want to go down this lifestyle that she's been brainwashed into liking was so sad. Her first arc this season at their wedding was some of my favorite character writing from this season. Then she peaks again during her speech, and I cannot believe that she used to be just a random character in Return of the Jedi. I cannot believe there was ever a time where I didn't consider her to be a top-tier Star Wars character. Similarly, Cassian's slow build-up to Rogue One was so solid. Watching him question his loyalties to not only his confidants, but through the rebellion, watching him lose more and more people, and slowly become the leader we know him to be was so great. I actually went back and rewatched Rogue One after the finale, and apart from Diego Luna's higher-pitched voice and him saying that he's never been to prison, it's actually pretty impressive how seamless it is. Especially his first scene, where not only do all of his information line up perfectly, like when he said Urso, Galen Urso, I was like, holy shit, that was set up perfectly. But also when he kills Tivik, you just feel Luthen coming out of him. The movie is still just kind of okay, but now I actually get really sad when he dies. Then you have characters like Luthen, who are still really good, but sometimes disappear for a pretty long while. He was still great here, and Stellan Skarsgård's performance is one of the franchise's best, though he definitely peaked with the Season 1 monologue. I do love that they establish he's willing to kill himself as well, drawing no lines for the rebellion. It's a good character moment, and that scene with Dedra is full of brilliant double meanings. Speaking of, she's another good example. She has a tendency to be absent at times, but she's so good when she appears. Genuinely terrifying, disgustingly evil, yet still human, especially her panic attack moment, which really humanized her while still making clear how big of a piece of shit she is. I was convinced she'd end up on the Death Star, but honestly, I've kind of grown to like her ending more. I do think her demotion's a little sudden, but her ending up in the prison that radicalized Cassian is pretty perfect. Bix is a character I've seen people say was sidelined, and I didn't really get that feeling, to be honest. I thought she was used very well, and her chemistry with Cassian was very investing. Her ending fucking broke my heart. It's the perfect way to hurt me in my soul without killing her. I do appreciate that at least someone got a semi-happy ending, even though when she said that she'd be waiting, I was ready to jump off a bridge, and seeing their kid was my emotional breaking point. There's characters like Saw, Willman, Brasso, and K2SO who are used very sparingly, but I'm fine with that. This show is the first time I've actually liked Saw, much like Mon Mothma, and the confirmation that he does space meth was the most in-character thing this show has ever done. I was sad to see Brasso go, but seeing as how this season basically existed as a cleanup job for Rogue One, I was fine with it. K2 was so fun in his episodes, and in a perfect world where the show got 5 seasons, he would have made for such a fun season-long sidekick. The poker scene was such a fun, relaxing moment, and I wish we got more of it. I also like that despite having to scrap the original alien-esque introduction for him, they still kind of got to do it with the hallway scene. Also loved Edie and her scenes. Krennic appears very occasionally, but man, Ben Mendelsohn is such a good actor, and I love his fruity-ass Rogue One performance paired with writing this good. What is he doing? Also, I love Lonnie. I think what solidified the idea that this show highlights the individual, the normal people who sacrificed everything for the rebellion for me, was when he told Luthen about the Death Star, and I realized, oh shit, without Lonnie, there is no original trilogy. There is no Jedi hero Luke Skywalker. The entire galaxy was saved because of fucking Lonnie. What a fantastic character. But then you have characters like Vel, who just got so sidelined it was kind of upsetting. Now, I don't have a problem with Cinta's death. Like I said, that was inevitable for most of the OCs, and I like how it was a consequence of Luthen ignoring Cassian's warning, but after that, Vel only appears in a single scene for the 3rd arc, and she's only in the last episode of the last arc. She doesn't have much to do once Cinta dies. And I like how human her scenes were in the finale compared to her more hostile demeanor we usually see. Seeing her toast to all the ones they've lost with her fellow last Aldani survivor and be genuinely kind and inviting to Clea after their bickering early on was very heartwarming and a good reminder of what they're ultimately fighting for. But she doesn't have much plot relevance, and I really wish she did considering how important she is to the first season. I'm sure in a longer series she would have had much more to do in these sections, but as it stands, kinda disappointing. I also would have loved to see Lita and Perrin more after the first arc, but it's clear we didn't have any time for it. But then we have the two characters who got the fucking all-star treatment. Cyril Karn is a fantastic antagonist, and I adored him here. He's such a fun character with how uptight and devoted yet pathetic he is, and watching him slowly realize that the institution he's this loyal to doesn't give a rat's ass about him, and then watch him see what he's unknowingly helped conspire, his entire worldview slowly shatter, his loyalties entirely demolished, no idea where to go next, and then see the man he's blamed all of his problems on, watch him forget every realization he just had for petty revenge, only to be hit with "Who are you?" Bro, I felt what he felt. I'm so glad he turned on Dedra and the Empire, but then immediately just joined the rebellion. His entire life was shifting amidst this horrifying event, and it's much more realistic that he has no idea what to do with himself. And his hesitation once you realize that this man he blames for everything has no idea who he even is. You see him question everything in his life. Goosebumps. I'm glad Cassian wasn't the one to kill him, to really sadden the fact that Cyril isn't even a footnote in his life. But really, maybe my favorite character of the season is Clea. She had such a minimal role in season 1 that I questioned why they even put her on the poster, but here, she honestly makes the top 5 characters in the show, which easily means top 10 Star Wars characters, to be honest. Her performance was so good that the most shocking revelation of the season was finding out that this is Elizabeth Dulau's first major acting role. Just in the first arc, you get a much clearer sense of both her personality and the fact that she is genuinely as devoted to this cause as Luthen is, and isn't just his assistant. She gets the most exciting moment in Arc 2, she gets one of the best dialogue exchanges in Act 3, and man, Act 4. Episode 10 was inevitable. Nobody had a bigger death sentence than Luthen, but watching her be a one-man army just to find and kill him was not only badass, but you finally get the full extent of their relationship, only for that devastating moment. That forehead kiss killed me. Watching her be so helpless and desperate in episode 11 was such a shift from her regular character, and honestly, I didn't cry when she killed Luthen. I violently sobbed so much that it hurt during the entire last half of episode 12 when you just watch her on Yavin, wordlessly come to terms with everything she's been through. Finally see the sunrise that Luthen knew he wouldn't see, knowing everything she sacrificed and everything she deserves. It was such an overwhelming episode, and I am so happy she survived. The big scene, the toast, and hearing Nemik's manifesto again didn't really help with the crying too. But yeah, I'm so happy with how this show ended. At the end of the day, if my only complaint is that I want more, that's pretty good. Because honestly, I did complain about the absent characters, but there isn't really anything wrong with the stuff we did get. I'm just longing for the stuff we didn't get. The arcs are still extremely well crafted and very captivating, and there's not a single bad episode. The streak of episodes 8 to 12 is one of the most legendary I've ever seen. It's still my second favorite season of a Star Wars TV show. If you're a fan of this series in any way, shape, or form, then you need to watch this show. It doesn't matter if you've loved everything they've put out or if you vehemently hate everything that Disney's ever made. It is, without a doubt, the best thing to come out of Star Wars since 1983. And possibly ever? Yeah, ever. This is better than, or at least on par with the original trilogy. Star Wars has never been this good, and it will never, ever be this good again. I am giving Andor Season 2 a 9.5 out of 10. An absolute must-watch for anyone who likes TV in general. A true masterpiece. I'll let you guys know next year if The Mandalorian and Grogu is as good or not.